I'm a huge Rudy Gobert guy personally. I love a big fella that can set a screen and lock down that defense.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard
You've
that
never
before.
heard somebody say that? That's just me. I think I'm in an island by myself, honestly.
I've never heard somebody say they're a Rudy Gobert guy.
I love it. By the way, he's been fucking hooping this year. He did more people should say it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, give him a shout out. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Old Man and the Three. I'm your host, Cam Johnson, joined by my co-host, Tommy Alter. Today, we have a very special guest, a good friend of ours, a good friend of the show, Chicago kid, Kenny Beecham. Kenny, thank you for joining us.
Of course, man. Anytime you need me, I'm here. Wish it was under different circumstances based on the game, the Bears and all. But, I'm here. Tommy, how we feeling?
I was going to ask you, what have your last 12 hours look like? In terms of process,
the last 12 hours, a lot of crying. No, this is the thing though, Tommy and Cam. I'm a Chicago sports fan through and through. Right, I was born in '96, so those last 3 Bulls championships I don't even count personally in my fandom. I got 1 World Series here with the White Sox, and then the Bears have a Super Bowl appearance once in my life, but I was 10, so it doesn't count. So this is the most fun I've ever had as a sports fan. And for it to end like that, like my daughter, she's 3. She doesn't even understand that the season is over. She thinks that we got another game next week, right? So it's kind of crazy. Excited about the future. But you know how the internet is, man. They keep posting that clip of Dan Campbell saying this might be the only time we got a chance to do this. And now it's in the back of my mind, like, this is the furthest we're ever going to go in my adult life. It sucks. I'm happy for Iceman, but it's just all the emotions.
What do you think, Cam?
I mean, sometimes it's just so hard to go straight to the top in any sport. I mean, what the Bears were able to do, turn the culture, the feeling, the fan base around, the team around. I just think Ben Johnson is elite. I think he's the real deal. I think you guys have a great young quarterback in Caleb. Like, I wouldn't say, I would say your timeline is plenty wide enough to get what you want to get accomplished. And shoot, man, like you guys outperformed expectations, so that got to be a win. But coming so close, I get it. I'm a Bengals fan, so I've been exactly in your shoes. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Burrow's second year comes back from injury. I went to the Super Bowl in LA. Heartbreaking, and we haven't been back. Lost an AFC Championship, and then injuries and all that stuff, man. So I get it, but I think good times ahead for the Bears. Bears Nation should be happy.
Did they remind y'all of the Pacers a little bit from this past season?
I did see that a lot. I don't know. The NBA is such a different monster. You know what I mean? So maybe, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know.
Because this is my thing, and I
don't see.
I agree with both of you. Caleb is elite, Ben is elite. I also think, like, shout out to defense. I mean, they held Matty Stafford down last night. Like, he has not looked like that in a long time. I feel like, but I think the thing which is a killer about the game, besides the obvious, throw in overtime, I think what's a killer about the game, and I'm curious what you guys think about this, just with sort of the new age of coaching in general, is I'm like, what they had 2 goal line stands against us. Sometimes should you just take the points? Especially when you start to understand where the game is. Do you start to just be like, just kick the field goal? And I'm not, like, it's impossible to dump on Ben Johnson. What Ben Johnson has done this year is amazing. So I feel like, like, this is not the show that's going to be the one doing that. But I'm also like, if you just kick the field goal, the game's over on that throw at the end of the game. You know what I mean? If you just kick the field goal once.
That. I mean, I just knew based on the last, 3 weeks, week of the regular season and then the game versus the Packers, that there was no way Ben Johnson was going to kick those field goals. And that 49ers game, what did we punt them the ball when we was like 4th and 3, and then they came down and scored, and then you saw him lipping like, I should have went for it. Like, I just knew that was going to be the case. In the first half, I kind of wish he would go for the field goal more often than not because Iceman doesn't wake up into the fourth quarter anyway. So like 4th and 3, trying to fit that ball there at the goal line, I just didn't feel too confident in it. But it's hard, like you said, like Ben has been so great all season long, it's hard to really question his decision-making because we wouldn't be here without his decision-making.
Hindsight is 2020, always easy to say. But I think the rationale when you're in goal to go, deep red zone situations, I think the overwhelming rationale has been, okay, you can take 3 points, but then you're kicking the ball off, right? You're kicking the ball off, kicking in the end zone or wherever. The ball could easily be at the 35-yard line, and these kickoff returns are creating shorter fields for offense. So you take the 3 points, you concede a little bit of field position. If you don't get a touchdown in a goal-to-go situation, one, you just want to be aggressive, right? You want to be the aggressor in the game. You want to stay on the attack. It's just a mindset. Two, if you don't get it, they got the ball at the 10-yard line with 90 yards to go in the cold. And that's a lot, different of a task. I think that's just the overwhelming mindset with these coaches. And I don't blame them at all. Like, I think it's a sound strategy. It's been working for these teams. Like, it's been working for the Lions. It's been working for the Bears. And at times it doesn't work. You can question all you want, but I like that they stick with their guns on it.
Different sport, but you've been in the locker room after a surprising team has gone on the run and you fall short. Obviously, the Bears didn't make it to the Super Bowl or anything. What is that offseason like from the player's perspective after surprising the league and being a couple plays short of, making it to, the last couple games?
Okay, so take our my second year in the league, our Phoenix Suns team that went to the championship.
Yep.
You get all the way, surprise team. We could be a playoff team at the beginning of the season is what we were looked at. But nobody thought we'd be a 2 seed and in the finals. As competitors, the sting of losing way outweighed the positive of making it that far, but the momentum built, you could feel. So in that offseason, we went right back to work. I think the most daunting part of it all is that when that final buzzer rang, and this was the season after the bubble, so it was late July, you go back to the locker room, the disappointment hits you, all that stuff. You look around, you have confidence in your teammates, confidence in your coaching staff. You think you have the pieces to win a championship. You come so close to think of the pieces. The most daunting task ahead of you is that you realize that you have to start over from day one. You have a great energy throughout the offseason, but you got to go through a training camp. You got to go through a preseason. And you got to go through 82 games plus 3 rounds of playoffs just to have a chance at the finals again. So that, when the realization hits you with that, the Bears come a couple plays away from making an NFC championship. It's going to be a whole nother year before they could even have a chance to do it with a lot of work in between. So that's kind of the biggest mental battle when you feel like you have a capable team. But at the same time, our whole entire team that offseason between my second and third year, we were locked in because we felt good about what we were doing. We felt like we had a good team. So we enjoyed that process. I think when it hit us again is when we lost in that Game 7 to the Mavs. We were a 1 seed. I forget our record. It was 65-17 or something. We had a great season. You know what I mean? We got back to where, a couple weeks where we wanted to be. And then you realize, damn, I got to do it all over again. And so that's where it gets a little bit tough. But as competitors, that's what we love about the game. So, you just look for a team, and the NFL is probably a little bit different, but they got great pieces. The Bears have great pieces. This could be something that they could spin into a really good stretch here.
Kenny, let's pivot to NBA. We got a lot to talk about. You've not been on with us since Cam has taken the mantle, since Cam is now the new face of NBA podcasting. I'm curious your perspective. You watch more games than almost anybody, I would say, that we know. What has excited you the most in the last 4 months around the league?
Oh, in the last 4 months. I don't know. I just read a piece by Tom Haberstroh that I thought was really interesting. And it's not really about the last couple months. It's more about the last couple weeks, how the first couple months of the season, scoring is at an all-time high. People are getting to the foul line more times than any time in history. And then something shifted for the second year in a row where there's less fouls being called, where I mean, the percentage is like down 30% in just 2 weeks' time. And I find it so fascinating that the referees have so much power to kind of shift the way teams have to play basketball, where players across the association that normally get 10 free throws a game are down to 7. Like that may not seem like a lot, but on the possession by possession basis, on a game by game possession or basis, that matters a ton. And last year this happened, and Adam Silver said that there was no league meetings amongst the referees that make them officiate the game differently. But not only are the numbers different, as I'm viewing these games, I'm seeing calls that weren't being called or that was being called 3 weeks ago that are not even getting close to picking up the whistle. And I find it so fascinating because now it has teams having to adjust, right? Some of these guys that have been heavy drive guys, I'm seeing stop 1 or 2 steps away from the basket instead of trying to burrow in and get those foul calls. So it is just so interesting how the smallest change of the whistle being swallowed just a little bit can change everything.
I love that point, Kenny. I love picking up on that trend and breaking it down from a player's perspective. Yes, we recognize, we all, fans, players, coaches, everybody recognizes that referees have a huge impact on the game. Just however they're calling the game, to whatever level impacts, dictates how much physicality is played with and shot selection and so on and so forth. We can go down the line. There's a couple factors at play overall. One, every team starts the season highly amped up to play physical. I've seen it in my 7 years. It's like, it almost seems like it's like a repeating track. Like you go through the playoffs, and the playoffs, physicality is allowed at a super high level. You come into the season, every coaching staff is like, we're going to play really physical. They're going to officiate the way that they did in the playoffs. Like the physicality is going to be up this year. You know what I mean? That's how we're going to start the season. So every team comes out. Obviously, you have early season energy. And then you're just wanting to play physical because you watch the playoffs recently and you see how it's played and you think that's how the game's going to be played. So every team's high energy, every team's playing physical, boom, tons and tons of fouls. It starts to taper off. January is the classic dog days of the NBA season where fatigue is higher. You're in the middle ground. I think we just played our 43rd game, so we're just over the halfway hump. And it's like everything kind of starts to wear on you. It's just a league-wide trend. The game starts to slow down a little bit. Teams don't play quite as fast as they are playing in November. It just is what it is. And then on top of that, if the referees are now allowing just a little bit more physicality, the effect is magnified times 10 just because of the environment that is January NBA basketball. So it's a very good point, and it's an interesting take. And, some teams are scoring still at a super, super high level. Some teams are not. But across the league, like you said, these trends, they're real, and I'm glad you pointed them out.
Speaking about things slowing down a little bit, curious sort of both your perspectives on all the final 4 teams in the in-season tournament. San Antonio, OKC, Knicks, Orlando, all have kind of hit their own version of a rut. I would say, obviously, for OKC, losing a couple of games qualifies as a rut. So that word can be defined differently depending on who you're looking at it. But the Knicks are sort of in the middle of that right now. Orlando, I mean, they're in Europe, so they have their own kind of crazy travel. I'm curious if you think we've seen this the last couple of years where Lakers win doesn't necessarily result in anything playoff wise. Milwaukee wins, sort of the same thing. But I'm kind of curious if you guys think that, because of the increased physicality of trying to win that thing and having basically, in essence, playoff-esque games in the middle of December and then having the come down that you're talking about, Cam, if that makes it even tougher because you're basically like in a position where it's like you're playing a June 2nd, game 5, game 6 level of intensity game, and then you've got a regular season game. By the way, with the Knicks, they were like, they won in Vegas on a Tuesday and they were in Indy on a Thursday. There wasn't even like 4 days in between. It was straight up like you're right back in it.
Yes, I will say that if I were to guess, just human nature, when you have $500,000 plus on the line with big time games to get there, and those games are highly competitive and highly physical, you win, you get a reward. Like your mental competitive itch is scratched for just a second. And it could be, it could be just, human mind speaking, enough of a like let your guard down moment for a little bit of slippage to happen. You accomplish something, you feel good. It's easy to relax in those moments. I can't exactly speak to what the Knicks are going through, but that could very well be the case. You throw in an injury or two, and boom, there you have it, a little bit of a rough patch. But it's something that they can't overcome and get right back onto what got them there in the first place. But I think the main thing is that they can turn up and perform at a high level when they need to. And if this lull is what it is, like the quicker they get out of it and get back on track, I think they'll be fine in the long run. Kenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not in the locker room, so I couldn't tell you. In my mind, from a viewer's perspective, I think it might be somewhat coincidental. I think you mentioned the biggest thing, injury, right? The Knicks dealing with injury. The Spurs have dealt with a few injuries over the last couple weeks. The Orlando Magic obviously missed Franz Wagner for a month's change. So that's kind of where my head is at. But I could definitely see your perspective of like having something to play for all of a sudden, then that's done. And now you're back into the dog days, right? It's like, okay, this is some random Thursday, like you mentioned in Indiana, this game means a lot less. And now I got my adrenaline high because we just played a game that mattered. So I could definitely see it that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if it just happens to be coincidental. The Knicks have not looked amazing, but I still feel pretty good about them once it matters. The Spurs haven't looked amazing as of recent, but I still really feel good about their young team's chances to win a couple playoff series. So I don't know. I think it's probably more coincidental than anything.
Kenny, we had a couple. Cam and I were talking last night, but we wanted to hit on the show. We had a couple categories of sort of broad. If we were going to do top fives on a couple of these different categories, just to get your perspective, because we are sort of at the midway point. They announced all-star starters today. The first one I think we wanted to start with, all must-see TV, all NBA League Pass, all like you're dropping everything in your life besides your family to watch them play. If you had to have 5 right now, who's on that list for you?
So full teams, right? Not just individual players?
So full teams. You could do, by the way, you could pick a player if you want. It could be either or.
Whatever you see fit.
I'm gonna start off, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, Cam, but the Denver Nuggets are really high on that list. As a guy that watches a lot of basketball, Yoke goes down with an injury, and immediately my mind is, oh my God, the Nuggets are about to fall into the play-in. Right? I don't know how long he's going to be out. We're knocking on wood, hoping that it's not season ending. And, between you being out, Yoke being out, Christian being out, and Aaron being out, and I was like, no way this team can really sustain himself. And then Jamal Murray continues to do his thing. I'm expecting him to be an all-star and next week when they announce the reserves. Peyton Watson, I mean, you're in the locker room with him on a daily basis. I didn't see this happening at all, right? I knew he was a highly touted high school guy. UCLA 3 points per game, comes in, even though he's a first round pick, they see something in him and boom, when the team needs him the most, he's averaging 20 plus. Even a guy like Zeke Naji, right, who, was getting DMPs for a lot of the last couple seasons, stepping in, and feels like everybody has been empowered. And I couldn't have expected personally to tune into as many Nuggets games without Jokic as I have been. But that's how fun the team has been as of recent. Even down to like Mr. Pickett, who my friends here in the studio were telling me, from his college days, how he used his big old body, booty ball is what they were calling it. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see that in the NBA. So, yeah, even without Jokic being on the court, the team has been so fun. So they're really high on my list right now.
Yeah, just being close to the situation and part of the situation. The effort across the board. We had a tough one against Charlotte last night, but that's part of the process when you're thinned out and guys are playing more minutes with heavier, kind of mechanical loads than they're used to having. The bottom line is our group has gone out and competed every night, like you said, and when kind of like in an empowered way. And Jamal, like the performances he's put up and through, every team goes through periods of times where flu bugs are running through the locker room and stuff like that. Like guys have had some real gutsy performances. You mentioned Peyton. We've been talking about him on the show for weeks now, just because the volume and the uptick in shot making and the creativity, like for all those things to happen at once, that's extremely hard to do. And you mentioned he's a high recruit. We all knew that. But like that doesn't discount from the fact that what he's doing at a high level consistently is very, very hard to do, but he's still been doing it. So I appreciate you giving us that little shout out, man. I'm in there every day with the guys, and it's just kind of been a locked in mentality where we know that our goals are pretty big in the end. And, we're loving guys getting these opportunities to find rhythms and to kind of create their little niches so that they can get out there and feel confident when their number is called. And, that could even be in the playoffs. But I do look around the locker room. At halftime yesterday, I looked around and it's like me, CB, Yoke, AG, Valanciunas. Like, we got a heck of a roster on the injured. On the bench right now. Like just our 6 guys on the bench right now would be a pretty good team. So once we get everybody back, which we will, and everybody will get healthy, it's really exciting for us.
Another team I'll have is a team that you guys lost against. The Charlotte Hornets are a fun basketball team, man. Right now, they're sitting at 16-27. Obviously, not that great. But the advanced stats, if you look at them, they're playing closer to a 500 team than a team that's 9 games under 500. They have their young core, and as long as LaMelo, Khan, and Brandon Miller are playing, they're a fun team, and they're actually just a good team straight up. And that's even with them having a hole at the center position with them playing all the young dudes. So that is a team I'm tuning in on a nightly basis because it might be a 7 3-pointer LaMelo game. It might be Con Knipple for 7 3-pointers. It might be Brandon Miller jumping over Kyle Kuzma, catching a body. You never really know on a day-to-day basis. And they might be a little bit too much in the hole to make a push for the play-in this year. But I think that if I had to guess, going into next season, a lot of people are going to be in on the Charlotte Hornets as a surprise team in the Eastern Conference to just make their first playoff series in I don't know how long it's been, honestly. It's been a while. I know they had a play-in second year of LaMelo's career, but I don't think they won the play-in to make it official.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, super fun team.
To that point, and watching them yesterday, I think the thing that struck me most was that their team morale seemed to be in a good place. Now, that could just be because they were up 20 plus on us most of the game. But the communication, when something went wrong, they looked at each other. Like, there wasn't head hanging, and it wasn't really a game to hang your head when things are going well. But there wasn't head hanging when something went wrong. They weren't blaming each other. My bad. They're communicating back and forth. So what Charles Lee has done over there, if that is in the right spot with the young team, with talent, like you said, they have a lot of potential over there.
The other thing, I'm in
my next team. I
was going to say,
go ahead.
Cam, I'm in San Antonio right now. The Jazz are here. I saw K-Love yesterday, and he was talking about they just hung 60 on those guys. Like they have very high explosive upside when they play well. They just beat the Lakers too, where they are one of those teams where it's a little bit like if you catch them on the wrong night, the Nuggets all yesterday. If you catch them on the wrong night, like you're not losing by 6, like you're losing by 35. And so that's the other thing that makes them just sort of exciting from a viewer standpoint.
And that's part of the NBA too. I mean, guys are good. Everybody that's playing a lot of minutes in the NBA is probably a really good player. And when a team gets hot like that, like it's just really just about capturing that momentum and continuing to let it stack. But every team is capable of doing this at some point, for sure.
I'll play with a little bit of pace on these last couple. The next one's the Minnesota Timberwolves, and this is almost exclusively Anthony Edwards. He is my favorite player to watch in the entire league. Him versus Wembanyama from a few nights ago was one of the better duels that kind of got lost because there was so many games on that night. But him having 55 or 56 points in that performance is incredible. I'm a huge Rudy Gobert guy personally. I love a big fella that can set a screen and lock down that defense.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard that.
You've never heard somebody say that? That's just me. I think I'm in an island by myself, honestly.
I've never heard somebody say they're a Rudy Gobert guy.
I love it. By the way, he's been fucking hooping this year. He did more people should say it.
Yeah.
I shout out.
For a very long time was more analytical than eye tests. I think now I'm probably 60-40 analytical versus eye tests. And obviously earlier in Rudy's career, the analytics were insane. So I kind of fell in love with that archetype of center where it's going to set us good screen assists out of this world, roll to the basket, and lock down defenses. So since then, I've been a fan. I got a chance to interview him years ago. So I was just like, that's one of my guys.
Respect.
The next one is the team you just mentioned, Tommy, the Utah Jazz. But the only they have to have Larry Marketing plan, and they have to have Keontae George playing. Any other time, if I see the injury report and there's no Larry Marketing and no Keontae, I'm just not tuning into that game. But when it's both of them, that team can really give you 120, 130 points. They may give up the exact same amount of points, but boy, are they fun. The offense is cool. And I love a player like Lowry that doesn't need to put the ball on the floor to drop 30.
Give Bryce Sensabaugh a little bit of love on the show too.
Man, I had so much Bryce Sensabaugh stock before the season started, and I'm so happy it's turning into real life, man.
Heck of a week. 40 ball, 30 ball, 25. He's right there adding to the Utah Jazz point total, and they're putting up points.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And it's going perfectly for them, right? Because he can drop his 40 and they still lose and they can keep their top 8 protected pick. The last team, top 5, is going to be the number 1 team out east, the Detroit Pistons. On the opposite of the Jazz scoring 1,000 points, I love a team that can just turn off the faucet. I think in the last month, they were the number 1 defensive team in the league. At the last 2 weeks, they have a 98 defensive rating, which is insane. And Isaiah Stewart is another one of those big fellas that I really do love, where he's so versatile as a defensive player. Years ago, when Zach LaVine was on my team and he was rumored to go to the Pistons, I wanted Isaiah Stewart more than a draft pick, more than Jay Nivey, more than any young player. I was like, give me Isaiah Stewart. So it's cool to see him here. And now that he's playing the required amount of minutes, he should be a shoo-in for all defensive this season. Last year, I think he would have made it if he played the amount of minutes. But good team. Kay Cunningham up top, getting the job done, and the defense holding it down.
B. Stu is a true enforcer. That's for sure.
Yeah.
To that point, I feel like for the next category, all underrated. And when we say underrated, not making an all-star team, not necessarily a household name, unless it's people in your audience, Kenny, who watch a ton of hoops, but just somebody like a Beef Stew that you were just like, they contribute to winning on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I like this. Do I give the first name?
I'll get the first. I think it's somebody we just talked about, Keontae George.
If he makes the All-Star team, does he lose this?
Yes. Yes. But if he doesn't,
then he counts.
And it's tough to make an All-Star game. So if he does, yeah, God bless him. But if he doesn't, then he's on the team. Maybe some question marks around if he's the guy for Utah in the long term coming into the season, and he's done nothing but kind of silence that and proven himself. He's probably averaging about 24, 6+ assists, and just overall a lot of skill to his game. And it's starting to translate at a really high level, like we talked about. Like they have pieces, they keep that potential draft pick in the pipeline. They got Ace Bailey, Lowry. They got guys. So maybe that's a team that their long-term window is looking pretty good.
Love Keontae George's game, man. For a long time, I didn't know if he was a 2 guard or a 1 guard. I think he kind of shut a lot of that up, and we know that he is the point guard. But even then, they play him with Isaiah Collier a ton as well, another point guard, and he can play off and get his shots that way. I saw an off-season workout video of his, and I'm sure this is the case across the league, but I cannot imagine how much work y'all really putting in until like you really see it 3-a-days and all of the lifting and stuff. It's kind of nuts. It feels like y'all get more work done in that off season than in that regular season where you're traveling so much. But if it's going to work out like this, everybody should be on that plan. I think he's with Guard Whisper. I don't know how many times you've been with Guard Whisper since you're not a guard, but
a little bit. I'm not a. What do you mean? What do you think I am? A center? Come on, bro. Shout out Oleg, Guard Whisperer. Yeah, I've been with Guard Whisperer, so thank you for that.
All right, I'll give a name, and this is definitely a deep cut, but he's a starter, so maybe not that deep of a cut. Nemez Queta.
Queta.
I like Nemez Queta. The first couple years of his career, the Sacramento Kings didn't really know how to use him. I think he's still developing as a player. A lot of people will look at the Boston Celtics and say that the center position is their biggest hole, and I honestly would agree as well. But he is doing such a good job holding things down. Like I mentioned, a guy that's going to set hard screens, roll to the basket, and protect the paint. He's towards the top of the league in screen assists, points per possession out of a screen. He's been amazing. Teams are not shooting well at the basket when he's the nearest defender. Just all of, again, the advanced analytic stuff that I love about centers. He's fitting that to a T, so much so that like the Celtics are a team and you can question what their deadline looks like. Do they get out of the tax? Do they buy in a little bit? I wouldn't be surprised if that center position is one that they don't touch because Nemez Queta has been so good.
I think the Celtics are going to be a very interesting team to watch over the next 2 months about what they do or don't do, because I think that
absolutely
we're going to get some surprises that are going to make them a lot better without having to do much. My question, I guess, in the Celtics, because I was going to throw this name in for this category as well, is what about Luka Garza? shooting 50% from three. They just seem to figure out. Cam and I talk about this all the time about just knowing your role, and they seem to be extremely comfortable across the board. Where a guy like that knows exactly what he needs to do all the time, and he has. It seems like it's just been like a seamless fit. It's taken him a couple years to kind of find his place, I feel like, in the league, and it feels like he's another one that is in that category of would we be surprised at all if Luka Garza hits 3 threes in the fourth quarter of a playoff game in April? No, because they're setting him up for success. You're kind of seeing it happen right now.
Yeah, the Celtics are kind of like backup center university, from like Luke Cornett to Nemez Keita to even like Xavier Tillman from a few years back. It seems like they just find a way to, yeah, like you mentioned, get people to play the exact role that they need to play.
Center by committee.
All right, Cam, let's get another one.
Kenny, no, I'm going back to Kenny with this because I really like this kind of advanced analytic wave he's on. So I'm letting him rock out with another one because I don't have those off the top of my head. Like I'm not in the going through them every day. You know, it's like
that's why I'm here.
You know, his ball knowledge is the real deal. So keep cooking.
I'm going to go with Zach Edey. Unfortunately, he's going to be out for the next 5 weeks. But it's something about, it's not even just about Zach Edey's individual game. It's about how him just being on the court empowers Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't think it's a surprise that Jaren's numbers look so great when he's playing alongside a true center versus when he has to do it by himself. We know Jaren is not a guy that's going to kill the glass too much. And having a big fella out there really helps him. And not only helps him, helped Ja for a lot of the season too. If you look at the end of last year and the beginning when Zach Edey was playing, it's just unfortunate the big fella's dealing with so many injuries because, you know, the Grizzlies can go in a couple different directions at this deadline. And I would hope that they don't just completely tear it down without giving us 50, 60 games of Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. together, because I think that's a really nice front court for the now and for the future. So shout out to Zach Edey, another hard screen setting big fella.
We're all on the bigs in this session.
Can I ask you about somebody else, Kenny? How are you feeling about Alex Sarr these days?
Alex Sarr is one of the best stories of the NBA this year.
Oh, I was going to say him, and just how are you feeling about the Wizards in general? Because I feel like they're another team that doesn't get a ton of love, and they started off so badly. But there's been a lot, the trade aside, which is interesting in its own right, there's been a lot to like over the last 2 months.
They're definitely more watchable now than they were 2 months ago. Man, you couldn't pay me to tune into a Wizards game then. I was a highlight watcher. But no, what has happened with Alex Sarr is such a good story, mostly because last year he's a rookie at this point, right? So you don't want to look into rookie seasons as much as, you know, if somebody's year 7 or 8 or so. But the shot diet was very confusing to me, and I understand kind of allowing him to. I guess it's similar to what Wemby did his first season, where we want him to shoot threes for this first stint just to see if he can knock them down. And then Alex Sarr came into the season and he completely revitalized his like entire way of shooting the ball and where he's getting to his spots and so on. And that's why the Trae Young thing was so interesting to me, because he basically hasn't played with a point guard in his entire career. Bub Carrington is more of a combo in my personal opinion, and he's playing with CJ McCollum, who also is a combo. So I think he has the potential to be one of our better defensive players in the league. But also, if he's going to get to the rim at this point and finish there, then I think the sky's the limit. And between him and Trey Johnson, who continues to look like one of the future best shooter in the league one day, and Keyshawn, who also looks good on ball, I think they got some cooking. It might just be a couple years away from it being a real play-in thing, but their core is pretty nice at the young age.
The other team, before we get to our last category, the other team, Kenny, I just want to get your perspective on. We've talked about it a little bit. We just did an episode with them a couple weeks ago, is Phoenix. I feel like they've got a few different guys who probably fit this list. But I'm just curious what you've liked the most about them, because I think that's another team expectations were probably not super high for going into the season, but they're just tough as shit. Nobody seems to want to play them.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to watch. One of my favorite things about the team is how they crash the offensive glass while simultaneously not being a bad transition defense. And if you can add extra possessions and prevent an opposing team from getting a couple extra possessions doing transition, then the sky is the limit. We obviously know who Booker is, an offensive player. One of the things I love the most about Jordan outside of the offensive rebounding plan is how he's empowering players to play outside of the traditional role we recognize them with. where like Grayson Allen has more on-ball possessions than any time in his career, almost double his highest year of his career. Colin Gillespie was kind of a leftover, and now he's one of the more impactful players on their team. Dylan Brooks is getting isolation possessions, which in the last couple of years, like sit in the corner, shoot a three, and defend. So everybody's just showcasing, hey, I'm an NBA player. And it kind of changes the perspective as a fan when you think about players in their role and you see like what they're doing, or what, like we mentioned, Peyton Watson, how he can turn it up when necessary. And it's like, oh yeah, all these guys really are NBA players and they can step up when necessary.
Last category, we'll do three of these, I think, for each. I think my caveat, I want to say, Cam, you can't pick any teammates because Jamal and Yoko would be on this list, I would say, probably for both of you. If we're doing...
Too bad I'm picking them. Too bad I'm picking them.
So Cam gets 5. If we're doing all fourth quarter, Kenny, it's a tie game, minute left in the fourth quarter. You need the ball in somebody's hands. That's it. To make a shot, to make the right play, to do whatever it is. You get 3 picks, all fourth quarter. Got the whole league at your disposal. Who are your 3?
I'm going to go with the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, first on that list. What he's been able to do in the fourth quarter has been great. Last year, they were a team that didn't play a ton of clutch games. Now they got more this season than they did all of last year. And Shai's been one of the few offensive bright spots in that team. The next, or do I go back to back? Do I just give you my whole list?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go Cade Cunningham too. Cade has been so amazing down the stretch. And part of that is like, they don't really have a lot of other options offensively down the stretch. But Cade's been able to really take over these games and close things out. He might be the front runner for Clutch Player of the Year, even if that's an award that we don't care about. And then lastly, because I'm going to leave the Nuggets to Cam. I think he can have them. They both deserve to be on this list. I'm going to go Donovan Mitchell still. The Cavs haven't been as fun as last year, but Donovan still is good for like eight points in the fourth quarter. There's been games this year where he had 14 going into the fourth and the end of the game with 34. Like that's how nuts of a fourth quarter performer he can be on a nightly basis. So those are my top 3. And I got a few snubs, but I'm not going to say them because somebody else might pick them.
No, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going with 2. I'm going with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Period. And the story, I've been seeing it firsthand. All season. They have made some ridiculous plays down the stretch of some games. I know we all watched Christmas Day against Minnesota, just a perfect encapsulation of it. I think Yoke was 50s, Maul was 40s, and they just closed the game. Big shots, overtime, down 6-9, whatever we were down in overtime. No problem. That was those are 2 special guys, and I'm gonna leave it right there. Kenny, you can go your honorable mentions. I know where you're going with these.
Also had Kawhi Leonard on this list. I feel like Kawhi's kind of been in the mode for the last month or 2. I don't know what his fourth quarter actual scoring is, but just looking the eye test of watching his games over the last couple. I'm going to mention a guy that we mentioned earlier, Keontae George. Has hit some huge shots this season. One of them against my favorite team, the Chicago Bulls, in that overtime game earlier in the season. I think we have to mention Giannis. He's just a volume machine in the fourth quarter, especially because that's like he's given us 10 minutes per fourth quarter. He almost plays his whole shift is the fourth quarter. And then the last name I had on my list is sneaky Denny, man. Denny Abdia. Denny's been getting to the foul line in that fourth quarter, hitting some big shots. He definitely knows what his stats are looking like. He'll try to get that extra foul to get that to from 29 to 31. He wants that 30 piece. And then Book. Those are my last names.
You can throw in a Jalen Brunson, who you still would definitely trust late game situations, and Ant Edwards, who we talked about earlier, somebody that you trust late game situation, and I think that's a pretty good list, top to bottom, right there.
My only miss, I was gonna say, with you throwing those guys in, is Maxey. But besides that, I feel like we got it all. Before we wrap,
agreed.
Cam, it was just announced a couple days ago that your brother Puff will be playing this year. Do you want to give some context both on what's happening with him, but then just sort of talk about the whole situation overall?
Absolutely. How much time we got, man?
This is a whole different episode.
Sheesh. Because just for some more context, and it could be its own episode. I swear it could be its own episode. Just for some more context to the situation, my master's program at North Carolina was a sport admin program focused on college athletics. So for 2 years, I sat there in class and listen to the problems of the NCAA, the future problems of the NCAA, and where it's all headed and how it all works. And I gained a lot of insight in that program. And to sum it all up, the main thing I learned from sitting there and watching and listening and participating was that the NCAA is screwed. The NCAA is screwed. And this is 2017 to 2019. And the more you read, the more you went over the cases that involve the NCAA over the last 40 years, the more you see the operating budgets of schools and the revenue they're creating, football, basketball, the more you realize that they just could not continue to hang on. And we talked about this at length, and it's like head scratching, like, where's it going to go? Well, when all this pressure mounts on them, they make two key rule changes. The first one being allowing players to transfer more freely using the transfer portal. The second being the use of your own name, image, and likeness to make money for yourself. Now, I've heard a lot of discussion over NIL, and while it was probably created so that you can go down to the burger joint down the road on campus and get a little deal and make some money on the side, I think that was probably its original intention. The reality has become these quarterbacks and these basketball players and women's basketball players and softball players, like, they are commanding millions and millions of dollars from collectives or from whatever. So while it's turned into that, like, it's predictable because it is big business. College sports are big business at the top. And so it's made a mess, period. It's made a mess. Players can transfer freely. And basically, I think Coach Cal made this point the other day, is like, there's nothing stopping them from, we talk about this before, but there's nothing stopping them from being like, I'm at school A, pay me $2 million, or I'm leaving, because school B out there on the transfer portal in the market will pay me $2 million. So you can do that every single year. So yes, at some point, it takes what we love out of college sports. We all get that. I think players do deserve to get paid. I've always said this. I've said this since I was in the program, and I got into verbal arguments with staff and classmates over this. And I'm like, it's inevitable. And lo and behold, here we are. Now, to give context on my little brother, Puff started his career at North Carolina, played 3 years there, transferred to Penn State, played 2 seasons there. In his first season at North Carolina, suffered a foot injury, broke his foot, had to have surgery, missed basically a full year with that rehab process. He played 14 games his freshman year, so not enough to classify as a medical redshirt. You have to play 30% or less. He's dealing with these struggles all the way through into his sophomore year, does not step on the court in his sophomore year, I believe, until January. They had the fortune of making the national championship, so he played somewhere in the 20s of games that season. So it didn't make it look like he missed that much, but he missed a solid, at least a third of the season to start. His third year at North Carolina, he maybe just missed a couple. Overall, he was a little bit healthier that year. Gets to Penn State, his first year there, overall a little bit healthier, although a couple missed games here and there. But then in his fifth year, it was mid-January of last season. Early January, suffers a concussion, misses 1 game, comes back, and shortly thereafter, he has a fall where he's going to the ground, puts his hand down, broken wrist. He has to get surgery, out for the rest of the season. So he played, I think that was his 17th game. Unfortunately, his team did not make the Big Ten tournament, which is crazy to not make your own conference tournament. But so their season was cut, boom, at 30. So he played 17 technically out of 30. He played less than half his freshman year. He missed a third his second year. So he's played 111 out of 160 some total potential games, right? And if the NCAA never made exceptions to the rules that they have upon getting an extra year of eligibility for medical reasons, then he'd have no case. But simultaneously to his argument, so basically as soon as he got injured last year, like he broke his wrist good. Like he had to get that thing fixed. He was out for a large portion of the summer, like a portion large enough that he could not go through any NBA draft process, could not get any overseas gigs. He was rehab. He was with me all summer rehabbing his hand. So if the NCAA never bent the rules, or not even bent the rules, made exceptions to their own rules for other players, then he would have just moved on. But as soon as he got hurt, he filed for a 6th year. He said, I've missed this many games in my career. Like there are guys who might miss 30 games out of 160 and still be granted the year. So there were 7 or 8 guys with similar case to his that got pretty much, NCAA basically said, yeah, sure, go ahead, play another season. But he was blocked. So this process started for him in February, where he had, he was appealing to the NCAA, trying to get that extra year. They said no. They said no again. He went into the transfer portal, which didn't help him because Penn State then, which was his caregiver at the time, had no motivation, zero, negative, because he said he was going to Ohio State. They had zero motivation to help him along. So his case kind of just, like, they dragged this out. The NCAA drags this out. When you get to the court process, it's almost like they try to bleed you. You know what I mean? But like, he felt his case was warranting an extra year, so he stuck with it. And it has been tough on him. He thought he'd get clearance just based on, and I can pull up the names, maybe another segment, I go through everybody's cases that had been approved for this extra year. But he kind of just went through this whole process, just bided his time. And finally, 2 or 3 days ago, he was granted a TRO, which gives him a little over 2 weeks before maybe a larger hearing that discusses the rest of his eligibility. But in the meantime, he is on campus and he's allowed to start playing for Ohio State effective immediately. And so a sixth-year guy joining a Big Ten, big-time program over halfway through the season sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds ridiculous. I unfortunately, the internet's a place where information gets bounced around and willy-nilly, and I get, I see the stuff people say and I understand the frustration, but it's not about necessarily the NCAA's core principles of operation. It's about the opportunities afforded to him. Why does he not get the same opportunities that other players have gotten the opportunities to pursue? And at the same time, he's going to go back to school if he can. He has value in college basketball right now, even after an injury, where he can get back on the court, put out good, output, and then launch his professional basketball career. Guys, I'm telling you, it is so hard to launch your professional basketball career after a season-ending injury that impacts what you can do in that time when you're kind of, trying out for teams. He couldn't play for assembly team. He couldn't do the pre-draft process. He couldn't really he was dealing with that risk all summer. So he found a spot that he could go, that he could get another chance, and he rightfully deserves it. So whatever everybody says, you get the classic "get a job, bros" on the internet. You know what I mean? And I don't care. This is the NCAA's fault, if anything. They have created an environment where they're like, for so long, they have been hiding behind amateurism, which they only established the parameters of amateurism as the operating principle of the NCAA when a college football player unfortunately died in competition a very, very, very long time ago, before college sports were even profitable. And the family sued for workers' comp, where he's not a worker, he's an amateur. He's an amateur, he's not a worker, he's a student. And from that moment on, they have just used that as their golden ticket to keeping all the money, to keeping money away from the players. Student first, athlete second. These guys are amateurs, when in reality, they're not. It's just when you're playing in front of 15, 10, 20,000 people, you're just, you know what I mean? It's big. You're part of big business. So for them to kind of let all these rules evolve as they have, and then basically just say, you know what, go ahead, open season, basically is what they've said over the past couple of years. The rule changes are that dramatic, where they have not done a good enough job setting a solid structure. And maybe this is what they wanted. Maybe they wanted the mess so that they can go back and try to be the saviors or whatever. But they're in real jeopardy of losing college sports as a whole. The NCAA is. Football, a long time ago, we barely talk about it. But I'm going back to the 80s, 90s. Football has already begun their breaking away process. You watch the college football playoffs, right? Is that tonight?
Yes,
the championship?
Yeah, that's tonight.
Let me know how many NCAA logos you see out there. Let me know. Let me know how many NCAA logos you've seen throughout the whole college football playoffs. You will see zero. They lost it. They lost it a long time ago in a court case. I think it was Oklahoma that sued. It was over television rights. But from that point on, football is about money going to conferences. So we've had this is such a long-term issue, and the NCAA is in real jeopardy. Their rules are all over the place. I'm just glad that right now the rules are benefiting the players where they're able to get, make money and support their families. But overall, when it comes to my little brother, you're damn right he's going to try to get that 6th year. You're damn right he's going to try to go out there and play as much as he can, especially in an environment where he can go get paid and he can put himself in the best position to continue his basketball career. You're damn right he's going to do it. So he's going to go out there and just enjoy continuing to play basketball.
That was a pretty good rant, Kenny.
And then
I think we would call that. I think we would call that a monologue. You didn't script that.
We could have a whole.
We could have a whole.
We could have no. We could have a whole episode. I mean, this was my master's program where I sat there for 2 years and listened to the issues at hand, and we even look for solutions. The short answer is there is no easy solution. It's going to take a lot of people, a lot of really, really smart people to fully fix it. And like I said, man, if the players are getting paid and the system's messed up, it's better than the players not getting paid. The system's been messed up. And I know it challenges what we love about college sports, but that's a dangerous way of thinking. That's just a dangerous way of thinking. It's like if any person was kind of being taken advantage of in any business scenario, but it's just not really that okay. So we're not going to act like it's okay. And so we're just going to have to figure out a new way to love college athletics. But I'm done. I've taken my time. I've taken my monologue. I can keep going. Maybe I'll keep going at a further date. But right now I'm done.
I think
you guys, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anything.
What do you think, Kenny? I'm almost like we got to close on that. That was a courtroom final argument.
Yeah, you start bringing out the court dates and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, he's cooking right now. So I'm cool with that being the end. Yeah, let it be what it be.
You know what?
And if any of the viewers have any questions or any comments,
you know where to find him. You know where to find.
I can keep going on this.
You know where to find Cam.
You know where to find me. But shout out to Puff, and I hope you know what I mean. It's been tough. I call him all the time, and guys, I'm telling you, the past 5-6 months on him have been so frustrating. Seeing guys kind of. It's random. They'll give a guy a year. They won't give a guy a year. They'll give a guy a year. They won't give a guy a year. But if you guys know me, you know my family, we're not going to just settle for them saying no. We are going to fight it. And this is just part of that fight. And this is what has resulted into that point. Things can still change in the next couple of weeks, but it's looking a lot better for him right now.
Shout out to Puff.
And on that note, you got me a little worked up over here. Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Old Men in 3. Tommy, thank you as always. And Kenny, man, like I said, friend of ours, friend of the show, Chicago kid. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. You the man.
Appreciate it.